Welcome back, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, my first guest tonight is the senior senator from New Jersey who just made history, breaking the record for the longest individual speech in the Senate floor with his 25-hour and 5-minute long speech. Please welcome back to The Late Show, Senator Cory Booker.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Wow.
There you go.
Thank you.
There you go. Well, Senator, thanks for being here. I'm really grateful that you could be here so we can talk through the chaos that is being visited on our country by our government right now. But before we do that, I just want to talk for a second about your speech last week, your 25-hour and 5-minute speech. I know it's unlikely we'll go that long tonight, okay? But just in case, I have another pitcher of water for you right here. We have some Ricolas for you
I love that. I love
and then
that.
most importantly of all, here's the men's room key. Anyway, just feel free.
Yes. Yes, I might put that right here.
If
just
you
to
might
have
need
it.
to, you can call commercial breaks and just walk off if you want. So, at any point did you start hallucinating when you were up there?
My worries going into it were, frankly, having to go to the bathroom. So I did something that's not smart, not advised, that really ticked off my mom, which was I started dehydrating myself about 24 hours beforehand, just not drinking. So
Seriously, that's how you get a kidney stone, my man.
I have. My mom reminded me that I am a middle-aged black guy that's 200 and too much pounds, and that is not a smart thing. So she wasn't sure how long I would go. She just said, "Please tap out when you feel it." But my mom has this saying, this is behind every successful child is an astonished parent. So I was happy, I was very happy to astonish her that I could go that long,
Well, one of the nice aspects of it, you were up there, you weren't talking about you were talking about our nation, the challenges it faces, not just this challenges, but the challenges we always face, and the need to actually face them in some realistic and collaborative way. But along the way of talking about that, you managed to wipe out Strom Thurmond's 1957 record, which was shameful. Can you remind everybody what the previous record was held and trying to stop?
Yeah, Strom Thurmond, when he was actually about my age, was trying to stop civil rights and trying to stop the civil rights legislation. While legends were out there fighting for it in the streets, he was trying to block the legislation. And I want to say that he held that record for 68 years, but in many ways he planted a seed to just really demonstrate that he was not successful. A black guy came along and broke that record, so I'm grateful for that.
That is a poetic denouement of that moment.
Yeah, but look, the reality is he was not successful. I may have broke the speaking record, but he wasn't successful in stopping civil rights from happening because black people and white people and Asian people, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, all joined together in this rainbow coalition that overcame what he was doing. And that's the secret. Change has never come from Washington. It often comes despite Washington, and it comes to Washington by American people who are saying, I am not satisfied with what's going on, and I'm going to join a larger movement because it's a moral moment. They said that in the civil rights movement, in the labor movement, in the LGBTQ movement. People who were from varied backgrounds said, this is a moral moment, and I'm not going to be a spectator to American history. I'm going to join the cause of making American history.
You quote... You quote John Lewis saying, let's make good trouble.
Yes.
Let's make good trouble. You say the power of the people isn't in the people in power. In this democracy, the power of people is greater than the people in power. Why does it always have to be the people? Don't we elect representatives to go to Washington, D.C., so we don't have to think about this all the time?
Look, I will tell you this. I serve with some extraordinary human beings in Washington, people I look up to. Even, you take a Tammy Duckworth who lost her legs in combat and is on the floor and fights for things and wins battles that people don't know, whether it's for reproductive health or for our veterans. So there are good people fighting to do good things. But the history of this country, we have to understand we are here not because of the people in Washington. I always say that we didn't get the suffrage, women's right to vote, because a bunch of men on the Senate floor put their hands in and said, okay, fellas, let's give women the right to vote. Ready, break. No, it happened because of somebody like Alice Paul, a young woman in her 20s from New Jersey, actually, did the first ever protest in front of the White House. And then when they arrested her, and what they do to often strong women, especially back in those days, they put her in an insane asylum. Before Gandhi, she was going on hunger strikes in prison. And it was the First Amendment, the press, that told her story, shamed the country, and the President of the United States, who she was protesting, came out and joined the suffrage movement. It has always been the people of this nation during the abolitionist movement. The greatest infrastructure project in the history of America was white people and black people in the abolitionist movement joining together to create the Underground Railroad, liberating people, not waiting for Washington to do it. And so that should teach us right now. There are good people in Washington, hardworking people on both sides of the aisle that have done good things. But real change, especially in the moral moments in our country, when the character of our nation is in the balance, like right now, it has always been the change led by the people. And that's why in that speech, I wanted to center the voices of Americans and read as much as I could the letters we're getting, the demands we're getting, the people who are saying, Cory Booker, you're not doing enough, at which they were right.
Well, let's talk about your constituents. You held a town hall. I know that you went to one of the hands-off rallies, at least one, and you also held a town hall. What are you hearing from your constituents? What do they most want you and the other people in Washington to do right now? What's upsetting them the most?
Well, we're in a country right now where we have a president that in the most crass way is saying, hey, I'm going to cut all of this stuff in the name of efficiency, which is really creating more expense and more hardship. When you cut somebody's health care or ability to see a primary care physician, you actually are pushing them to use the emergency room as their primary care place, which is the most expensive type of health care, as opposed to preventative care. And so what I'm hearing is, as much as you say that, hey, you stood for 25 hours, you and I are both sitting here knowing that somebody right now is on their third shift at the diner because they can't afford to pay rent unless they work a full around the clock. Somebody's in a hospital right now who is a nurse's assistant, changing bedpans and is catching extra shifts. We have some police officers who are standing. She's standing on a third shift being held over. There are Americans that stand every day, but what they're angry about is that this promise that we made, the very dream of this country, that if I work hard, if I play by the rules, if I raise my family, we can make it. And that ability to make it is being undermined by this president who's taking away retirement security, who's attacking bedrock promises like Social Security or Medicaid. And that, to me, the voices of these courageous folks, they're heartbreaking. And if your heart's not broken, I always say, if America hasn't broken your heart, you don't love her enough. When you see people like Joseph, who came to my town hall, who's on the autism spectrum, who's got severe anxiety standing in front of crowds, but when he heard I was coming out after this speech, he wanted to come, and his mother introduced him, and he read from this sheet in his own handwriting, don't let them take away my Medicaid. And if that doesn't call upon your conscience, if it doesn't call upon your heart to not let this fear that we all have right now, that 80 million Americans could lose their health care because Donald Trump has told Congress, cut $880 billion from Medicaid in order for me to give bigger tax cuts to the wealthiest in this country who don't need them. If that doesn't motivate you, I question the strength of your love, and I worry about the poverty in our country, not materially, the poverty of empathy for your neighbor.
Well, let's talk about those complaints that people have. To give the devil more due than he deserves, Donald Trump was elected because people had these economic fears already. People
because
felt
they
like
put their trust in him.
They felt that he could fix their problems. Now, he betrays that trust over and over again by rewarding the richest people and rewarding himself, frankly. But when Joe Biden was elected, I remember thinking, let's not go back to a pre-Donald Trump America, because a pre-Donald Trump America gave us Donald Trump. What are the changes that have to happen that we don't find ourselves in a bind where people acting out of their own self-interest, which so many people have the right to do as voters. They want to do what's best for themselves and their family. What needs to most change in America so that a demagogue cannot seize the reins of fear?
Well, first of all, understand that from Father Conklin with his demagogic anti-Semitic, he was not just the #1 radio station, the majority of Americans listened to him. He was a demagogue. McCarthyism, and that every generation has seen demagoguery. I remember sitting with the great historian John Meacham, which he said, nothing that's happening right now is unprecedented. It's all very precedented. So the fact that demagoguery rises in our country or other countries is not unique, and it tends to possibly happen.
Well, here's what's unprecedented. Father Coughlin and Joe McCarthy were not the commander-in-chief and the president of the United States with a Congress that would not stand up to him at all. Case in point, Donald Trump is signing executive orders. A lot of presidents use executive orders. Never this many, never this fast, and never eliminating things completely by fiat. He says, Department of Education, gone. I signed a piece of paper, it's gone. Can he do that, or does Congress have to agree?
Well, let's just speak to the specific truth that you told. And this is why it's such a moral moment, is because never before in my lifetime, or I think in the last century of America, have we seen somebody to rise to power who this callously, cruelly, and in a craven manner disregards our constitutional principles and threatens the bedrock needs of many Americans: healthcare, retirement security, honoring our veterans. So what you're saying is absolutely true. And the call then at this moment, when you see someone like him rise, it is now testing our nation and our nation's constitutional principles more than I ever imagined possible. But the question cannot be, what is he doing? The question is what are we going to do in response to that? And so for me, I can sit here, I always say it's a state of sedentary agitation, where we're so upset about what's going on, but we don't ask ourselves, what can we do? And what I said on the floor in the 25 hours, and it was a healing process in many ways for myself, to say very plainly, we have not done enough. I have not done enough. The Democratic Party must accept responsibility, not for complicity, but for contributing to the pathway to this kind of demagoguery, to this kind of person being in the White House. So we have to tell that truth. But it still falls to the question is, what are you going to do? When this moment in history came, where did you stand? And I will say it to you again, as you said it already, the power of the people is greater than the people in power. And I know you're afraid, but fear is a necessary precondition to courage. I know you're angry, and I'm angry, but anger could either eat you up inside or it could be fuel for the fight. If anything that history tells us, if American history is anything, it is a perpetual testimony to the achievement of impossible things against impossible odds. And my generation, this is what's exciting to me. This is the last baby boomer president. We're seeing the last baby boomer leaders in Congress. This is a generation that I call the civil rights generation that has extraordinary accomplishments, but new generations are rising, X, millennial, Generation Z, and it's our turn now, not just to talk about what we're against or who we're against. It's our time now to redeem the American dream, to dream this country new, to see the new possibilities that our parents and our forefathers couldn't imagine. We have the moment now to shape this nation, and we cannot lose it, and we especially can't lose it to a hate-filled demagogue that wants to tear down our country. We need to now rebuild it and reimagine it.
Your protest ended the same day Democrats had a win in Wisconsin. where a liberal judge won a Supreme Court race that Elon Musk was pouring tens of millions of dollars into. He lost there, but he's been busy elsewhere. Doge's targeting of Social Security has sent into what has been described as a death spiral and chaos. They slashed USAID. It essentially does not exist anymore. Thousands of employees across the federal government have lost their jobs, been put on leave,
and
or
I
fired.
just want to tell you how violative of our values it should be. People say USAID, less than 1% of our budget, so less than 1 penny of every dollar you send down, puts scientists right in the middle of fighting Ebola, or fighting treatment-resistant tuberculosis, or fighting the bird flu. In a world now that we now know that an infectious disease anywhere is a threat to public health everywhere. When the horrific earthquake happened in Myanmar, we didn't have the resources to respond because USAID wasn't there, and the people that are filling the gap don't share our values of democracy, freedom, and justice. The Chinese stepped forward and said, let us help you, let us stand up. There is a global competition going on, and I know we fundamentally should be focused on the trashing of our economy. Inflation is going up, people's 401k accounts are going down, but in this interconnected globe, those issues matter, and I've been one of the people defending USAID and don't want to lose that. I sit down with foreign leaders, and I had a European foreign minister. I don't want to name the country, but with a very thick accent, looked at me and said, I can't say all the English that he spoke, colorful French or Greek or whatever it was, but he basically looks at me and quite literally says, what the is going on with your country? We need you, and you're retreating from world leadership. You're retreating from being the light of democracy that we need you to be.
I have friends in New Zealand, and they said, this time, we're mad at you.
Yes.
Last time we were mad at Trump.
Yes.
And I said, oh, that's terrible. You guys are like the country that likes us. And they said, we're the country that loves you. And we're mad at you this time.
Right.
And,
right. And this is what King said. He said, what we're ultimately going to have to repent for is not the vitriolic words and violent actions of the bad people, but the appalling silence and inaction of the good people. This is one of those moments where we should be looking at ourselves in the mirror and saying, why did we have such a low voter turnout? Well, why didn't we understand what was at stake right now?
Let's talk about action and inaction. And one of the things that made so many people mad at the Democratic leadership is voting for the CR,
right,
which was not a clean CR, that had a lot of cuts in it, that seemed like the only place where the Democrats could exercise any leverage over what was going on, the slash and burn going on in Washington, D.C. I had Senator Schumer on last week to talk about this, and I have great respect for Senator Schumer, but I found his answers less than nutritious. And I'm wondering why you voted against it.
Look, for me, that was a catalytic point, and I thought that if we took a stand there, then we would not stand alone. I think faith is one of these things that when you step out into scary, dark things, faith is knowing one of two things is going to happen. Either you're going to find solid ground underneath you, or the universe will send you people that will teach you how to fly, that will soar with you. When we started that 24-5-hour journey, we had no idea how people were going to react, but we knew we needed to do something different, and take a risk. I thought the American people, if we took that stand and the Republicans shut down the government, I thought that they would be with our side. It would be a galvanizing moment. But we disagreed. What we can't do now, and years, a very good portion of my life was defined by playing football. And I used to know when we were going to score on the other team. And how did I know we were going to score on the other team? Is when I started hearing people in that huddle argue amongst themselves, demean or degrade them for missing a tackle or making a bad play. This is one of those moments where we're going to have differences, but I'm telling you, if everybody in your coalition agrees with everything that you believe in, your coalition is not big enough. We can have some room for mistakes, we can have some room for divisions, but when it comes to unifying in the cause of our country, when millions of Americans are literally on the verge of losing their health care, when seniors who've been saving for retirements have seen their 401ks lose so much money that they now realize they might have to extend retirement for years. When we have veterans, perhaps the people that deserve our deepest respect and appreciation, losing their jobs, being fired more than any president has fired veterans, and losing the services that they deserve, this is a time to say, okay, I may disagree with you, I may disagree with what you did, but right now, we're going to unify in this fight because we've got bigger challenges before us.
We got to go here, but I want to ask you one other question before we go. And that is, the international, as we said, the international response has been, other than Russia, it's been who want to build a statue to Trump, they've said on state media.
Yes.
It's been pretty appalled across the board. Prime Minister, the new Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, I believe his name is. Mark Carney, he gave a speech that was heartbreaking but resonant. He said that at this moment, when these tariffs go up, when Trump makes allies of our enemies and enemies of our allies, that the United States abdicates its role of leadership in the world. And he says that is a tragedy, but we have to face it. Can America walk back, in your opinion, can America walk back from the bridges that this man is burning? Should they trust us again? Should we even be trusted with the launch codes if this is the sort of person that we elect?
I formed my speech around John Lewis, who said the importance of getting in good trouble. And he would tell you, if he was here, and I believe he's in heaven, that that the change that he most made perhaps in his life was before he even got to Congress. It was because he, as a young man, decided to make good trouble. But when he did get to Congress, years later, he was beat on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. He was beat at Freedom Rides. He was physically assaulted at sit-ins. And he said that an elder man, came with his grandchild and asked him for his forgiveness. He admitted that he was one of the people that beat him. And John Lewis forgave him because he said everybody needs mercy. Everybody deserves a pathway to redemption. The soul of our country right now, I think, needs redemption. And all of us have to start to expand our hearts. We've had very difficult days, but the only way we get from here to there is start to embody and inhabit the best of our virtues and values. I say this about religion. Before you tell me about your religion, first show it to me in how you treat other people. Before you tell me how much you love your God, show it to me in how much you love God's children. Before you teach me about the passion you have for your faith, show it to me through the compassion you have for others. That's religion. You and I are people of faith. But there is a civic gospel in this country that we need more than ever. We have this Declaration of Independence that we herald. But the Declaration of Independence ends with this remarkable statement that these imperfect geniuses put down, which was a declaration of interdependence. They said that we must mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Now more than ever, the civic gospel of America, yes, Canada needs it, New Zealand needs it, the world needs it, but it will not be real anywhere until it's real in the hearts of Americans. And you cannot point fingers and ask other people to live that spirit. You've got to embody it. And I promise you, and I've learned this in my own life, if you have the courage, even if your legs shake, if you have the courage to speak up, even if your voice breaks, you will be an inspiration to another, and then another, and then another. And that will begin to overwhelm all the darkness in this world. Decide with conviction, like John Lewis, that you'll be a point of light, that you'll cause some good trouble. And before you realize it, you have redeemed the soul of a weary nation.
Senator, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for your urgency.
Thank you. Thank you.
Senator Cory Booker, everybody. We'll be right back with NBA All-Star Jalen Brunson.